I knew that someday I just had to be a truck driver, cause it holds a fascination for me. To have somebody paying me a living wage to travel all over the country. I told the man at the terminal I would work real hard, even 8 or 9 hours a day. I'll never forget the way that he laughed and the things that I had to say. He said, you got an awful lot to learn about truck driving, and you better start learning it fast. You got an awful lot to learn about truck driving, and we teach it in a special class. Yeah, you got an awful lot to learn about truck driving and a whole lot of fuel to burn. Well, it's a heck of a life being married to diesel, but son, you got an awful lot to learn.
Well, when I was a boy, I was raised on the farm, and we, in the fall of the year, we got through picking cotton. My mother would take the cotton sacks and wash them, iron them, and starch them, and I stretch them on a homemade stretcher. And I got the paint out of the junkyard, out of the bottom of the can. Somebody's painting a wagon or a barn, and I scraped the bottom, the corner out of the can in the junkyard, and that's what I used for my art colors, painting my first cowboys and Indians and horses, more or less horses. It was the main thing I loved more than anything. And I painted my first paintings on a cotton sack decking with old barn paint and wagon paint. I started in down in Godly, Texas, and on every weekend on Saturday afternoon we have a rodeo, local rodeo, and I got to be the clown. They gave me $1 a day and all the Coca-Cola I could drink. We did that for 2 years in the summertime, in the season, and then I thought I was so good that I went with the Texas Kids Carnival and Free Rodeo. I was the clown and the bull rider. But I wasn't supposed to ride them. I was supposed to get throwed off where the local boys could win the prize. And they finally thought I'd lost my mind and run me off, wouldn't let me work no more, because I'd get down on my hands and knees and run the Brahma bulls out of the arena. Well, some of the clowns do that this day and time, but they're smarter than I was. I'd get right up under the Brahma bull and throw the little secondhand dirt in his face, and that bull would leave that arena. And then they said, well, if I didn't have any better sense than that, they'd put me on the bulls and let them throw me off, or the other cowboys would look good. And that's the way it went for a couple of years. We worked rodeo in the daytime, and at night, there's another old boy, his name was Jack something, and he was an artist, pretty good artist. At night, we'd paint. We'd get the Coke trays, we'd get all the Coke trays and beg them from the Coke drivers and pick up a few around in the taverns and places like that. And we'd paint it Coke trays about that big. And we'd paint pictures of horses' heads and blue bonnets and cowboys, and sometimes we painted, we invented the miniskirt. We painted cowgirls with miniskirts on. And we get from 25 to 50 cents a piece for those trays. We'd sell 4 or 5 of them a day on the carnival, and then we got $1 for doing the rodeo, and we were in the big money then. And well, when I quit rodeo, and Uncle Sam came along and said, Joe, you better come and help me win that big war over yonder. And I went overseas, spent 3 years overseas. When I came back, well, rodeo, and I'd picked up a little experience and a little bit smarter, and I said, right, rodeoing is for somebody else. It's either stronger or dumber than I am on. And I started painting signs and pictures then. Before that, I always thought that was women's work and children or men that didn't want to work. But now I decided that that an artist makes a pretty good living compared to a cotton picker. When I got out of the Army, I thought I was going to be a cartoonist, pen, ink, and brush, dry brush. But I got wounded during the war. I shot 2 times my right hand, and I can't hold that pen and like I used to, so I took up oil painting. I painted water towers all over West Texas, North Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth. Some of the highest water towers in the country and hardest to get to. But when they need somebody to paint them, they say, there's no boy, it's so good that he don't know any better. He's so good and dumb that he'll paint that water tower. And I was so good and cheap that everybody wanted me. We worked all day painting that shop, Richland Plaza. And there's some guys came along, some drunks came along in a pickup that afternoon. They hollered up and said, "Hey, mister, do you always get your Z backwards?" And I said, "Look," I thought he said P or D or... And this here buddy of mine down on the catwalk, he looked up and he said, "Hey, you got your Z backwards, Joe. We've been working all day in the hot sun." And I looked over and got that Z backwards. So I pulled back up, coated out with aluminum paint. We got down early the next morning before anybody could see it. We ashamed of it. We got down early the next morning, climbed back up there and changed that Z. That's been a big joke with my old sign buddies back through the years about getting that Z backwards. And I was cold sober. Well, all my life, I was more or less fascinated by trucks, big trucks, because when I was a boy, a young man, I drove a truck. Compared to today's trucks, it would be a small truck. Hauled me up from Granbury, Texas to Cleveland for about a year. And I decided I'd just start some kind of a little old recognition for the truck drivers, because in the years to come, they're going to be recognized as the heroes today, like the Cowboy and the pioneers were years ago. Today, a truck driver to me is what a cowboy was to Will Rogers or somebody else a long time ago, and we still honor them and call them heroes, and some of them were heroes. And a lot of the truck drivers are heroes. And they need somebody to take some time out of this busy life and to make them the heroes and the men that they really are. Because they dress like cowboys, they listen to cowboy music and Western music, most of them do. And they think like the cowboys did. Only the difference is they have a 500 horses, where the old cowboy had one horse.
Well, I've walked the line on the 89 in the Arizona sun. I've chased the moon and I've caught a star on US 101. I've seen the sights from the Northern Lights to the Bend and the Rio Grande. I've took in a lot of this USA, 'cause I've trucked all over this land. Well, I've changed a tire by the light of a fire on the rock-bound coast of Maine. I've shoveled snow up in Idaho, been stuck on the Kansas plains. I've been to the end of the world and back with a wheel and a stick in my hands. I've passed the test and I've done my best. I've trucked all over this land. I've trucked all over this land, from Maine to the Rio Grande. I've paid the price of the trucking life, but I've trucked all over this land. I've heard the wail of a galloping gale on the road to the Florida Keys. I've felt the roar of a thunderstorm on the Oklahoma seas. I've set my sail on the Oregon Trail. I've camped in a redwood stand. I've loved the best and I've hated the rest, but I've trucked all over this land. I've trucked all over this land, from Maine to the Rio Grande. I've paid the price of a trucking life, but I've trucked all over this land.
Operator 19 for information.
Yeah, you got down around here. It's all right.
You got the channel breaker here. By golly, we looking for a Texaco truck stop here in this here town. We have that Grand Rapids, Michigan there going yet. We'll be out here on that Highway 20. He's just coming up to that 35W there eastbound going yet.
Yeah, be careful going on the next curve there. You're taking northbound 35 west. But be careful going around that curve, because it's a dangerous one.
Okay then, partner. Is that a pretty good truck stop? I hear they have great food down that way.
Oh, they got some of the best food you'll find in any truck stop around here. This, someone named Holland runs it out there. It's a very good place.
Hi, Roger on that. What's this I hear about that Hall of Fame? I heard a couple of truck drivers talking about the Hall of Fame. It's something new to me. Go ahead.
Hey, you just answered the right question then, because, man, we are proud of this.
Hi, Roger D. We're going to have to get together there and you kind of explain it to me there a little bit, because it's definitely new to me, and I'd definitely like to be a member.
Said a prayer as I climbed the stairs on the rocky mountainside. I've learned the words and I've sung my song, and I've traveled traveled far and wide. I've fought the fight and I've done alright for the likes of a wandering man. I've paid the price of a trucking life, but I've trucked all over this land. Well, I've trucked all over this land, from Maine to the Rio Grande. I've paid the price of a trucking life, but I've trucked all over this land. Yeah, I've trucked all over this land, from Maine to the Rio Grande. I've paid the price of a trucking life, but I've trucked all over this land.
I had the idea of traveling up and down these roads, the interstate, and I met truck drivers at truck stops, and I thought about how they built a hall of fame for cowboys and cowboy artists. And I said, well, my God, to me, they're the best men on this earth, and they need somebody. I thought maybe some smart rich guy'd come along and sort of glorify the truck driver and tell the world what he really is, but nobody would do it. So it had to be a country bumpkin cotton picker like me. And I said, well, I'm going to take the bull by the horn and take my $18 and spend it on a wheel and tell the world what the truck driver is, and I'm going to do it. We've got some plans, we've got some commitments, but they're not on paper, of a man that's going to donate us some land on Interstate 20 on Westertown, and have a complex there, a whole thing that goes with it, Hall of Fame. But we got this little deal here that explains about it, and then we got our applications here that we're mailing out to the members, applications and explaining what they get and what the truck driver gets. And we got the page, got the whole page in this magazine. We'll have another in next month's magazine. But this is 18-wheeler. It's the official publication of Truck Drivers Hall of Fame. And it'll come out every month. The truck drivers, the members get a magazine, and I'm sure and I hope that it's going to be bigger and better and have a few more girly pictures in it every month. And you get the big decal for the trucker trooper crime prevention coordination, and you get the card, rather a nice looking official card with his name on it, and a certificate. It goes with that for the driver. It says, the other sheet tells you everything you get. It costs, says right here, it says, here is my check, money order for $18 for my 1977 due. Made out to the National Truck Drivers Hall of Fame. It says, I understand this is a non-profit organization. And I think so, for what little I've told you, how do you like what I've said?
Well, I think it's going to be a real interesting situation here. It looks like it's going to be benefactory.
Of course, now I get out and paint murals and pictures and signs and everything else, and bring money in and give it to my wife to do the printing. And Jack Reed, he's the editor and the publisher of this magazine, and he's contributed more than anybody else, more than I have, really. And with his cooperation, we're going to give these truck drivers, make them nationally famous, every one of them. These old boys, if you go to these truck stops and hear them talk and see them, they remind you, I'm old enough to remember the cowboys, the real cowboys, at night, and then they go to town in the restaurants and sit around and talk. You go to a truck stop today, you see these truck drivers sitting around doing that, you're thinking about the old cowboys, because it's so much like it. I was born on a farm, in agriculture, but as I grew a little older, we moved to Mims Ranch down Johnson County. I lived on the ranch down there. I knew old cowboys. They had cattle, and I had cowboys, had a bunkhouse, and then we moved out to out to Post, Texas, between Spur and Post, and I worked on the ranch out there when I was about 18 years old. And they were real cowboys. Back when I was young, people said, you know what an artist is, damn old sissy artist is. We'd see pictures of guys wearing a town, smoking a cigarette in a holder, and they looked like a bunch of freaks. I didn't want to be like them, and I was always told, even my own half-brothers, they'd say, that's sissy work. You don't want to be, one time I ordered me a drawing paper and pencils and stuff. We lived out on the farm, and my brother, he threw it away. My older brother, half-brother, He said, you don't want to pull that trap, and you get out here and do a little little bronc busting and picking cotton, build a fence. That's men's work. Well, he installed into me, it really, I thought that artists were sissies. And, but then I read about Russell, Charles Russell, and people like him. And then later years I met Vigors and knew him, and boy, he's the farthest thing on earth for me. He's one of the best artists in the world. And he's the farthest thing on earth from a sissy. Pancho Mackey Buffet wanted me to paint on a mural one time. That was 12 years ago. And I said, yeah, I'll paint that mural. I painted a Mexican mural. And it was such the chain was a success. They started putting in more restaurants, and I started painting more murals. And today I painted murals for 41 different restaurants, and over nearly 4,000 feet of murals in the last 12 years. That's a mural 3/4 of a mile long and 6 feet wide if you put it all together. And that's besides the murals I painted for churches and honky tonks. Well, when somebody comes to me with a mural, I find out if they want a Western or a Mexican, Spanish, contemporary, French provincial, whatever they want, and to get a clearer picture of what they want, I let them look through magazines and the collection of pictures I have, and mostly the collection of pictures the murals that I painted, where they can give me a little clearer idea of what they think it's going to look like when it's finished. I start in with painting the skies, and when I get the sky painted, I just start in painting the mountain. After I get the mountains painted, well, all this other stuff just comes to me as I go down across there. I just make a tree here, and that's a Joshua tree. And then I figure out, I think before I get in, I'm going to put this trading post. I'll put these trees in where I put my trading post over them, in front of them. Here's some Indians. But they didn't stop that cantina because against the law to settle down. They're going to come over here to Old Hooker and cook them trading post and get them some calico. Happy about it. It's something I love to do, and it relaxes me and makes me feel like I'm in good health and feel good. When I work all night, nearly every night, I work all night in that little room in there, and I turn on old Bill Mack. Well, I'm not going to say that. Some of these good country western television stations, and get me a big chew of Red Man, and boy, I'm ready to paint. Then the time goes by so fast, and I have no worries, no cares, and no tension. I feel like everybody lived longer, they didn't have any tensions, any worries. Most people worrying about their money and their wife, but I'm not worrying about either one. My wife's got the money, she and I are 50-50 partners. We share everything. I make the money, she spends it, so you don't got no problem there. When you got a partner like that. But I'm a positive thinker. Some people don't like talk about it. I don't know who they are. They should. I get up every morning and I say, well, now what I can't do today, the Lord will help me do it. If I can't do it by myself, I get God. He made my arm well where I could paint. Without the good Lord, I couldn't do anything. You couldn't either. But I'm gonna keep eating that pure honey and wheat germ, and lay off that fat meat, that fat pork. And I'm gonna try to live 91 to 91. When I get 91, well, it won't matter to anybody but me.